600. Simon Boulton from Aequalis. That's horrendous.
It is a big surprise, Carson. As usual, we sit here flabbergasted at the numbers. Economists caught off the guard as well. Be interesting to see the participation rate, whether or not that will change. I mean, that's where the key impact is going to be on the actual unemployment rate. You know, it always seems strange that we get a decrease in jobs, but remain the unemployment rate staying the same. So it's yeah, shocking.
But
shocking
the fact
as in
that part
surprise.
rate is down, telling you what? That simply there aren't people now registering as being in work or out of work. They're not even looking.
Well, there's people leaving the workforce. I think we touched on this late last year. But there is a significant number of people that are coming away from the workforce.
And yet that's being augmented. Time and again, economists tell us we're getting this upswell of immigration. There are not enough jobs to meet the demand, we're told. So what about that story?
I think that the immigration has kept the mining boom sustained. As that's dropping off, I think that that's what we're going to see decrease. But there are skill sets that are still hard to get out there, Carson. I think the job market is changing. Where skills were, it's now coming through to a different area. New South Wales numbers, I think, were up, which again is growing confidence with the biggest population in the country. So there are some positive signs. Budgets and forecasts are looking good for 2014. So it is a surprising number based on all those factors.
So, yeah, when do you actually get to see it translating into, if anything, as I said, that crucial build in full-time roles? And what sectors might be outperformers?
We're seeing an increase still in the service sectors. You know, I think particularly in the risk management and compliance areas in financial services. Professional services are certainly increasing as well. Retail is showing signs of life. I mean, there has been an increase in retail figures, and that's going to be, I think, backed up by increase in retail employment. So there's a few things here that aren't as expected. That skew from permanent to temporary, that's something we're not really seeing. We are seeing an increased use of that permanent side coming in now, and lots of those part-time and contract roles are converting to permanent roles. Right. So that might be one of the things, again, that throws the figures out slightly.
What, you think that the part-time thing could be more of a structural change in the Australian marketplace?
I think it has been. It has been for probably the last 12 months. But it's also a sort of hedge your bets. Let's see how we go. And we saw a number of our contracts and temporary people convert into permanent roles late last year. So if that trend continues, I think that part-time figure will sort of skew somewhat the permanent jobs creation.
Sometimes the view from at the coalface is perhaps even better than what we get from statistics. And I say that because you walked into studio just a few minutes ago saying things are looking better. We've got forecasts are up, budgets are looking better for this year. I mean, we look back to December and these are never kind of backward-looking numbers in the sense that they're the only numbers we've got. But do you think in the next couple of months you could see the kind of moves that you're looking at the moment flow into these numbers?
I'd like to think so. The rate staying at 5.8 again puts out that 6% horrible figure that people were saying we're going to reach sooner rather than later. So the next month's figures and the ones after that I think are going to be the telling signs. December's never a good indicator on how things are going to be progressing longer term. So yeah, I'd like to think that my bounce, my step next month comes a little bit more justified.
There's been a slight tick up, I notice, in hours worked. Any comfort from that?
It's more from less. I think that's the other thing.
No comfort to the workers.
Tell us about it.
Working hard. You're looking tired, actually.
You're kidding me. I've never had as much sleep as I have in these last few weeks. So, thank you very much. But I was going to say, in fairness, that is the watchword across sectors, isn't it?
Yeah. Productivity. Productivity. I think sometimes efficiency and productivity are getting mixed up. We might be getting increased productivity, but are we doing it in the most efficient way? So that's another thing I think we'll see change through this year.
Incidentally, we see some productivity in the airline space. This is not going to be music to Qantas's ears because we're talking about jobs. They have already announced further losses even this week in Tasmania on the back of that trunk line kind of ceasing to fire. Air NZ and Singapore Airlines have formed an alliance. Qantas is going to be licking its wounds as that news just comes into us on the Business Channel. But incidentally, that fall, the lowest since 2010 now for the Australian dollar. What does that do in terms of companies with international operations? How is Australia viewed as... do we begin to look ever more like a branch office as the Australian dollar weakens off for companies that are kind of global?
Well, global companies...
And domiciled offshore.
The high dollar made Australia a very high-cost location. So head offices in the States and in Europe meant that looking at expanding in Australia was tough to put into budgets and hard to understand what value were they getting for these big figures. So I think the Australia dollar falling probably has a positive impact on overseas organisations where they have got significant businesses in Australia.
How are we finding just the sentiment towards the market in Australia? Kind of just going back more specifically to that, the branch office of the bigger headquarters.
Well, we're still seeing offshoring in lots of organisations, and drives for efficiencies are being followed by job cuts. I think that is something that we have seen and will continue to see. But there are better ways of doing things nowadays. Companies have invested in systems, better processes. So where organisations were doing things with lots of heads before, they can now do it with less.
Just noticing as well, the WA story is just starting to really break down. You were talking before about that immigration theme augmenting demand in that space. 4.7% unemployment now.
From 4%.
Yeah. Just explain that, given the immigration response.
Well, these are figures that have a lag effect. So I think that we did see the mining and the Western Australian employers sort of hiving back late last year. That would mean that a new workforce, or an imported workforce, wouldn't have jobs to do. So that again might be something that does skew the figures somewhat.
Okay.
Yeah. Are you finding that you're getting any less activity in your own business in WA?
In WA, I think that we don't do a lot of business in Perth and WA.
Where's the bulk of your business?
New South Wales and Victoria. So that's where we're seeing probably our trends. But WA is always in the news, and it's one that's been reading very much to trend. The mining investment falling, unemployment there increasing, and I think even now Queensland's got similar numbers. I haven't seen the breakdown state by state for this month's numbers, but yeah, I see that continue.
It's funny with a lot of this data though, and say what you're seeing in your own job. You get these intentions to spend, intentions to hire, intentions to invest. There's a definite feel in a lot of the data that it's still just not actually happened. The money hasn't been paid over. The investment hasn't been made. It's just this general idea. So what cements the picture for your clients this year? What do they want to see to just really complete that picture?
You're right. Last year was stop, start. We are going to hire, we're not going to hire. Should we hire, won't we hire? So I'd like to think now that some of those things will actually start to stick a bit more. And I think that's where the budgeting and forecasting is showing good signs. People now need to. They've got the budget to do it. They will.
Okay, let's